All right, so this morning we are going to walk through DocuSign step by step, the process from starting an opportunity in Command, going to DocuSign, creating a room in DocuSign, sending those documents out for signature, and uploading them up for compliance. There's a lot of information to cover this morning, so as I'm going through it, please do not hesitate to interrupt me with any questions. You can either ask me in the chat box or unmute yourself. And I'll also pause every once in a while to check in to see if there are any questions. This training is all for you, so please do not hesitate to ask me any questions. All right, that being said, I'm going to jump right in. So I am in my Command. So you notice that here's my Command home screen. I'm going to go to Opportunities because this is where we manage all of our sales pipelines and our sales funnel. And for me, I personally like to go to all opportunities so I can see a list of all of my active opportunities. And I'm going to come down here to this opportunity that I created this morning for 1234 Main Street. Here is my opportunity name, my phase and stage, all the information that I filled in when I had to create this opportunity. And then one thing I want to do really quickly is I want to add the property address here. So I'm just going to type in 1234 Main Street, and then it gives me the ability to add this. So I'll update this to Atlanta, and then 30342, and click Save. Now the benefit of adding this information in Command is that DocuSign will pull in some of the information from the opportunity into the room. So it'll pull in your contacts information, name, email address, phone number, property address information, some key dates. So it just helps streamline and simplify some things for you. So this is the Details tab. Whenever you're working throughout a transaction, if you need to make any updates to the General Information tab, you can come here to Details and then select the pencil. And anytime you see this pencil icon in Command, that lets you know that you can make an edit. So I can come in here, I can edit the name of my opportunity if I needed to. I can edit the contacts. Let's say I had both contacts, both sellers, but only one of them is going to be signing. I can remove the other one, update any of these dates here, estimated list price, any of that information. Once you are ready to send documents, I'm going to click over here to the Documents tab. And you'll notice that today we're going to work through a listing. The reason I'm selecting a listing as an example is because of the seller's property disclosure, community association disclosure, and the lead-based paint disclosure. Those are unique forms that only the sellers can fill in, and they're a little tricky in DocuSign, so I want to make sure that we walk through those today. But everything else, the functionality will work just the same on the buy side as it does the sales side. So when you come here into your Documents tab, there are folders over here on the left-hand side. We have Listed, Under Contract, and Closed. So, and then within each one of these folders, we have a list of documents. Now, this is going to be the list of documents that are going to be most likely needed or required for a transaction. It's not going to be exhaustive. So if you have some additional documents that you want to add, you can. But this is kind of a nice place to get started if you're brand new and you're like, what documents do I need for my listing? Well, you can come here and it'll say, I need my listing agreement, I need my seller's property disclosure, and I need my Rawls Group wire fraud and affiliated marketing disclosure. Boom. And you're good to go. Up here in the top right-hand corner of the Documents tab, you'll notice this button that says Start a Transaction. This button is extremely important because by clicking Start a Transaction in Command, it links your opportunity in Command to a room in DocuSign. And having the two systems sync and talk to each other is going to be one of the main benefits of using DocuSign in partnership with Command. In order to have that room in DocuSign sync with Command, you must click Start a Transaction. If you start a transaction directly in DocuSign, you will never be able to retroactively sync that room to an opportunity, which at the end of the day isn't going to be a huge deal, You can still work, the two systems will still work independently of each other. It's just when you are going to upload some documents for compliance, you're just gonna have a couple extra steps of having to download and then manually upload. But we'll walk through that as well. So when you were getting ready to create your listing agreement or your buyer brokerage agreement and start getting documents together, I'm gonna click on Start a Transaction up here in the top right-hand corner. And when you click Start a Transaction, the little wheel is going to turn and it's going to open up DocuSign in a new browser tab. If you have pop-ups blocked, you may get a notification in your URL bar with a little red flag. That could be the reason why DocuSign doesn't open. But you can turn that off and you can allow for any pop-ups from Command or from DocuSign. So you'll notice DocuSign took me straight into this new room here in DocuSign. If you're not logged into DocuSign, it'll just have you log in with your username and password that you created in Command. And then it'll take you right here into this room. I know that the room and the opportunity are synced because my room name up here is 1234 Main Street Stark Potts listing, which is the same name as my opportunity in Command. Up here in the top left-hand corner, right below your room name, is an ID number. And I want to point this out. This is more of a DocuSign 2.0 functionality, but in DocuSign, you do have the ability to email documents directly into your room. So if you ever want to take advantage of that feature, you would use this ID number here. So this morning, this is the very first time we have ever logged into DocuSign. This is my first listing that I'll be working on, my first client. Before we do anything in DocuSign, we need to confirm our NERDS ID. Your NERDS ID is what's going to give you access to the Georgia Association of Realtor forms. If you do not confirm your NERDS ID, you will not have access to those GAR forms and you will not be able to put together a listing agreement or a contract or any other document. So if you are unable to, if you don't ever have you can't find your GAR forms, it's probably because you have not yet confirmed your NERDS ID. I do also want to clarify that in order to get a NERDS ID, you do have to be a member of a local realtor board. And I do believe that for First Atlanta, we have to be members of the Atlanta Realtors Association. To confirm your NERDS ID, there are two different ways that you can do it. We'll walk through both ways. The most simple way is when you're here in the Documents tab, because this is where DocuSign is going to drop you off when you create that new room. If you come up to the top right-hand corner where it says Add, click on Add, and then select DocuSign Forms. And it's going to give us this pop-up window with these two logos. And we're going to click on the Realtor logo because we want to confirm that we are a member of the National Association of Realtors. Then it's going to ask for my 9-digit NRDS ID, my NERDS ID. I don't know my NERDS ID, and I've only met two agents over the year that I've been doing DocuSign trainings that actually know their NERDS ID. So thankfully, DocuSign has given us a link right here that says find your NERDS ID. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to open up a new browser tab that's going to allow me to use my last name, my email address, and or my real estate license number to look up my NERDS ID. So I'm going to use my last name and my license number because I don't remember exactly which email address I used when I set up my membership with the Atlanta Realtor Association. So I'll just type in my last name and then my license number and click submit. And there's my NERDS ID. So I'm just going to highlight that here, right mouse click and copy it. And then I'm going to close this tab because I don't need it anymore. I'll come back into the DocuSign pop-up window. I'm going to paste in my NERDS ID in this toolbar here. My last name, it needs to be the last name that matches your license number and the name that you used when you joined the Realtor Association. I point that out in the event that maybe you've gotten married or divorced or had any name change over the last couple months or year from when maybe you joined a Realtor Association versus now. Make sure it's the same last name. If there is a name change, you can reach out to the Atlanta Realtor Association and let them know that you had a name change, and ask them to update their file. And then you can use your new name and register correctly. And then below your last name, we're going to select the Georgia Association of Realtors. So as a member of the Atlanta board, you are automatically a member of the Georgia Association of Realtors, and that is what gives us access to those GAR forms. So I'm going to select Georgia Association of Realtors from this very long list of associations across the country that are in no particular order. I don't know why. So I'm just going to scroll all the way down to the bottom of the list, and then I'm going to kind of work my way up a little bit, and then I'm going to see the Georgia Association of Realtors. So I'm going to select that. So I've input my NRDS ID information. I've confirmed my last name. That is the same as the name I used when I joined the Atlanta Realtor Association, and selected Georgia Association of Realtors. Then I'm going to click Validate. It's going to say that I validated 2 association memberships. If this is your very first time confirming your NRDS ID, you will also get a secondary pop-up window here for the Georgia Association of Realtors asking you to accept the terms and condition of using the GAR forms for your real estate. Click Accept, and then voila. If you see this pop-up window here that says Add DocuSign Forms, and I can click on Select Library, and then there's my Georgia Association of Realtors, and there are all the GAR forms that I need. So that is way number 1 that you can confirm your NRDS ID. The second way I'm going to walk through very quickly is similar. So I'm going to click Cancel. And this is if you, this would be more likely if you are not creating a room or you're just kind of working in DocuSign. If you come up in the top right-hand corner where you see your initials or your image, click on that and select Preferences. And then in the menu on the left-hand side, I'm going to select Integrations. And then I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. And then here is my NRDS ID information. And it's going to give me the same options to fill in my 9-digit NRDS ID here. And where I see a clear button, if you haven't confirmed your NRDS ID, it'll give you the link right here that says find your NRDS ID. And then I'll confirm my last name, as well as that I'm a member of the Georgia Association of Realtors. And then I'd click Save. And there you go. You've confirmed your NRDS ID. Any questions about confirming your NRDS ID before we actually get started working in a room? All right. So I'm going to go back into my DocuSign room. So just give me a second here. So I put us back here into my Documents tab within my 1234 Main Street room that I just created. And the reason I wanted to come back here is because you're only going to confirm your NRDS ID one time. And once you confirm it, you will have access to GAR forms indefinitely. So you don't have to do that anymore. So every time you click Start a Transaction in Command, it'll create a new room for you here in DocuSign. My first instinct is to start adding documents here and get rolling with my listing agreement and all the other forms that I need. However, before we actually add any documents to this room, let's click over into the Details tab. It's important that we first come to the Details tab because this is where we're going to add in all of the information about our clients, about the property we're going to get ready to list, my contact information, and all of the information that I put here in the Details tab is what is going to auto-populate all of my documents that I create in my Documents tab. So if I put information in here, it'll autofill all the spaces on each individual form, and it'll just save me a little bit of time. So before we actually start editing this page, I want to quickly walk through the layout. So you'll notice if I scroll down just a little bit, we're kind of broken up into 2 different groups here. So on the left 2/3 of the page, we have information that's going to be about the actual property that we're going to be listing. And on the right-hand side, we have information about our clients. So you can see we have seller 1 over here, scroll down, seller 2, keep scrolling, we have listing agent 1, and then listing agent 2. And then that's on the left-hand side, that's all the information about the property. But if I continue scrolling down, here we'll have information about buyer 1. So if you're working as the buyer's agent in a transaction and you need to update your client's information, you do kind of have to scroll fairly far down the page to get to where it says buyer 1. buyer 2, buyer's agent, and buyer's agent 2. And those are the only fields to fill in. So I just wanted to point that out, that if you are working with a buyer, that you do need to scroll pretty far down to get to where you can double check and input their information. So I'm going to scroll back up to the top, and I'm going to go through and fill in as much of the information that I know at this point of the process. At any time, I can go through and edit and change and add information as I learn more. So I'm going to click the edit button. And it's going to make all of these fields editable. So with everything, I always recommend to start at the top of the page, and we'll work our way down field by field. We're going to kind of work on the left-hand side of the page first, and then we'll go to the right-hand side. So I'm going to leave the name of my room the same as it was, so it matches my command opportunity. I have a list side, local currency. I'm going to use US dollar. My MLS IDs, if I have one, I'll go ahead and I'm going to add that here. I'm just going to put in a fake number. Origin and lead, company room status. You don't have to fill that in if you don't want to. It's not going to affect anything. Our address, I'm going to type in 1234 Main Street, Atlanta, Fulton County, select Georgia, postal code 30342. Property type, this is going to be a residential detached. Year built, I'm going to select 2009. Any special circumstances? Nope, we are good to go. Listing date, I'm going to put in today's date, the 30th. Listing expiration date, let's do May. We'll do May 31st. Be a quick listing. Original listing amount, I'm going to do $415. Current listing amount, $415. And I'm just going to put 415 in all those fields. I don't know why it asks so many times, but I guess if you do a price reduction or a price increase, it gives you the ability to track what your original list price is versus where it is today. So I'm going to continue to scroll down. Here we have offer details. Well, we're just getting ready to list this property, so we don't have any offers yet. So I'm going to leave this blank. High bid confirmation, again, don't have any of that information or anything about closing because we're not even under contract yet. And then additional information here, I can seller concession, no, we don't need to put that in. List side commission, I can put 3. Buyer side, I can put 3% because I negotiated 6% with my clients. And then that is it. Scrolling down here, some property details. You can input this if you want to. I don't need it, and that's just extra time I don't want to spend trying to find this information. So I filled in everything that I know at this point of the process about the property I'm getting ready to list. I'm going to scroll up because now I want to go to that right-hand column and double check all of the information about my clients and for myself. Because it's here on the details page that I'm going to input contact information for my clients and myself, so I have the ability to send these documents for signature. So you'll notice over here, DocuSign pulled in my client's name, cell phone number, and email address directly from command. If you add your contact to command and then immediately create an opportunity and then immediately create a room, DocuSign is likely not going to pull in that information. But if you have clients that have been in your system for a day or so, command has had enough time to sync with the servers, so it's able to pull in that information from command into DocuSign. If for whatever reason it doesn't pull in your clients' names, at the bare minimum, put in their name and their email address. Those are really the only 2 pieces of information that you will need, because that is what you'll need to fill in their names on these forms and send it out for signature. So I'm going to check Tony Stark, looks good to go. Here's Tony's email. Scroll down. I don't need to fill in his address. It's fine. Then seller 2, we have Pepper Potts. And then here's her email address, which is just my personal. And then scrolling down, we have a listing agent. So this is going to be me as a listing agent. So here's my name, my phone number, my email address, company. You'll notice the company name defaults to Keller Williams Realty First Atlanta. Lynn confirmed that we can remove realty out of the name, so it just says Keller Williams First Atlanta. I know it seems like a small little thing. I would recommend that you remove realty out of the company name because the space on the GAR forms where it says company names is limited. So Keller Williams First Atlanta fits perfectly, but Keller Williams Realty First Atlanta will end up covering some of the other text on the document. So I can fill in the rest of the information here, double check it. We are good to go. Scroll down, listing agent 2. So if you are working with another agent on this listing, you could put his or her information in here. Scrolling down, now we get to the buyer's information. So I'm representing the sellers in this transaction example. So I don't have the buyer's names. I'm going to scroll down because I want to get to buyer's agent. And I want to point this out now, and I'll also point this out again later when we send these documents for signature. It is my recommendation that do not send documents to co-op agents through DocuSign for signature. It kind of seems counterintuitive, but the way that the DocuSign system works is that every single person that is included on a document that is registered to sign must sign that document in order for the document to be considered complete. 9 times out of 10 that when you send a document to a co-op agent, there's going to be some negotiations back and forth, which means that that co-op agent likely isn't going to sign the document right away. So only have your clients and yourself sign the documents in DocuSign, and then we'll send PDFs to that co-op agent. It may not make a ton of sense now, but I will point out this again when we get to the envelope and we're preparing these documents for signature.
Hey, Nick.
Yes.
Will you go over how to actually save those into one PDF to send? Or is that a different training?
Yep, we'll talk through that.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. So now that we're good to go here, I'm going to click save. So all of my updated information on the details tab is good to go. My room has been updated. So now I'm going to come back up to the top, and now I'm going to go to the documents tab because we are now ready to start working in our GAR forms. So I'm going to click on the documents tab. And then you'll notice here down in the gray area of the screen, we have a room docs folder. The room docs folder is going to be the default folder for any time you add a new document into this room, either from the library of forms, or you've uploaded a document, or you have received a completed signed document. They're all going to default into the room docs folder. I do want to point out also that Lynn and Alita do not look at your DocuSign room for compliance. In .loop, they used to go into our loops and actually look at the documents there. So they had to be organized in a certain way. They're never going to go into your DocuSign room, which can be a blessing and a curse because you can set up this room however it is that works best for you. However you like to organize your documents, have different folders, you can do whatever works best for you. So I point that out that if you want to set up other folders, you can. So up in the top right-hand corner, if you click on the click on Actions and then select Add Folder, we can add another folder here. So I'm going to create a listing agreement folder. Because I know that as I'm going through the transaction process, I'm going to have all my documents for my listing agreement. Then I'm going to have documents for the actual contract for sale. You can add as many folders as you want. You can have, might recommend a executed contract folder, a binding folder, a documents and negotiation folder. Just that way you can kind of keep track of where the different forms are. So now that we've added our listing agreement folder, let's start adding some documents to our room. To add documents, click on the Add plus sign in the top right-hand corner. Select DocuSign Forms from the drop-down menu. And then I'm going to leave the top drop-down as DocuSign Forms Library. And then from the second drop-down, I'm going to select the Georgia Association of Realtors. And this is going to pull up all 180 forms that we have access to from the Georgia Association of Realtors. They are just in alphabetical order here, so you could scroll through this entire list and find the ones that you need to use, or you can use the forms finder here to search for those specific forms. So since we are doing a listing today, I'm going to look for my exclusive seller listing agreement, my seller's property disclosure, and my community association disclosure. Now you'll notice I am not going to add my Rawls Group wire fraud or affiliated marketing disclosure here in the documents tab, because there aren't any actual fields for the agent or the client to fill in. Those are going to be added in the envelope as a template. So I'm going to get started by looking up for my documents I need, the exclusive seller listing agreement. And you'll notice they have a form number. So this is F101. I recommend that as you get more comfortable and more familiar with the forms, start memorizing what these form numbers are, because you can always just use the form number to search, because you'll see here we have 3 different listing agreements. If you're ever in a rush, and I have done this more times than I care to admit, but I have added the wrong version of my listing agreement or my seller's property disclosure. I've accidentally added the commercial one, and that's not going to be beneficial. So I'm going to add my exclusive seller listing agreement, F101. The bottom left-hand corner of this window, it says one form selected. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add all the documents that I can at one time, because it'll save time. So I'm going to search for my seller's property disclosure. And you'll notice when I search for seller's property disclosure, I have 4 different versions here. So I'm going to make sure I pick the correct one, which is the seller's property disclosure statement exhibit F301. And then I'm also going to add the community association fees, disclosures, and related issues. I'm going to select that. So I have 3 forms selected. And I am also going to add in the purchase and sale agreement. I understand that for our example this morning of working on a listing, I likely would not be the one to initiate a purchase and sale agreement. But because it is such an important document that you are going to use in your real estate career, I want to take the time to go through that document so you can get familiar with it and comfortable with how to use it in DocuSign. So to do that, I'm just going to type in F201 so I can show you how you can use the form ID, the form number, and I'm going to select that form. So now I have 4 forms selected, and I'm going to click Add. The room is going to refresh, and it will add those 4 documents to my room. And as I mentioned earlier, all those documents are going to default into that room docs folder. However, I made my listing agreement folder, so I want to put my listing agreement documents in that listing agreement folder. There are 2 ways that you can move documents between folders in a room. The first way is if you roll your mouse over a document icon, a radio button will appear in the top left-hand corner of that document. So I'm going to click on that radio button. And then whenever you select a document, this toolbar will appear at the top of the gray part of the page with this toolbar. I'm going to roll my mouse over and I can go to Move. I can click Move. I can select a destination, a folder in current room, and it'll give me the 2 different folders that I have in my room, and I can select the listing agreement folder and click Move. The page will refresh, and it will have moved my community association disclosure document from my rooms docs folder into my listing agreement. The second way is really easy. Just roll your mouse over a document, click your mouse down, hold your mouse down, and drag it into the folder you want to move it to. So I'm going to do the same thing with the seller's property disclosure. And now we are good to go. So I have my listing agreement documents all in one folder, and then my purchase and sale in the separate room docs folder. Any questions so far on adding documents, finding which documents to add, and organizing them? All right. Well, let's get started filling them out. So we're going to start with the seller listing agreement. So I'm just going to click on it to open it. We'll give it a second to load. All right. And now, just like as I mentioned before in the details tab and everything in command, just start at the top of the page and we'll work our way down, filling in the information that we have. So You'll notice here as I'm scrolling down, my property address has already been added into the form because these forms in the documents tab is pulling in the information directly from the details tab. So here's my street address. I'm missing the tax parcel ID number, so I would get that from the realist property or the tax assessor website. So I'm just going to type in a number here. Then we're going to scroll down and we're going to select our legal description. I'm going to recommend that you use attached as an exhibit here too. And if you have trouble finding your limited warranty deed or legal description, please reach out to one of our affiliated partners at Campbell & Brannan, Gannick PC, or McManamy, and they will be able to help you get that information. At the very least, you can always use the deed booking page, but legal description is much more preferred. So I'm going to scroll down. I don't need to fill in any of these other forms here. Now we'll get to list price. It's going to pull in the list price directly from the details tab. So I put in my list price as $415,000. You will notice that there are no commas in that number. I don't know why DocuSign, when they set up this field, they did, and they set it as a number, they did not include commas. You could type a comma in here. However, when you click save, it's just going to remove it. So just be very mindful whenever you're putting in a list price or a purchase price on a purchase and sale agreement that you are mindful of the number of zeros that you have on there, because I could very easily make this listed at $4.15 million. Getting a little carried away adding some zeros. So we have our list price, then we have our commencement date of this agreement. So whenever the relationship is going to start with these clients. So I can say, we'll just make that, we'll just do today's date. So 4/30 and then 2021. And then the ending date of this agreement, we're going to do 5/31 and then 2021. Now you'll notice when I'm adding in a date in any DocuSign form, I'm doing it in the numerical format. It's very important that whenever you add a date, you use this format, because the fields that are for dates, the way that DocuSign set them up is to be in this format. If I were to type out April 30, I would get an error message, and DocuSign would not save any of the information that I just put in this form. There's a lot of information in this form, so that would take a lot of time to have to come back in and redo. So just be mindful and double check that you use the numerical format for the dates. Scrolling down for marketing, we're going to list this in FMLS, we're going to do Georgia MLS, and KWLS. Oh, this also reminds me. I do want to point out that as we're going through the training this morning, this training is on how to use DocuSign forms and how to fill them in. I am not training on what information to fill in. Please always go to Lynn, Alita, or any of our affiliated closing attorney partners on the actual information to put in here. So I'm going to put in a lot of information, abbreviation, or something that's going to be probably incorrect, just for time's sake. So I just wanted to point that out. The marketing commencement date. So this is going to be the date that we're actually going to list this for sale. So I'm going to list that as today's date as well. And I am going to move this back no more than 5 days. So within 5 days of April 30th, I will get this property listed on FMLS. I'm going to fill in my name here, that this form is used for Nicholas Core. If you don't fill in your name here, not a huge deal, because DocuSign will automatically add your name down here in the bottom left-hand corner. And Lynn has confirmed that is plenty to make the document legally binding. So scrolling down for commission. All right, for the seller agrees to pay the broker the following commission. I'm going to check this box, and then I'm going to update this because I've negotiated 6%, and the listing broker, First Atlanta, agrees to pay the co-op broker 3%. So we'd split that. Protected period. I like to protect myself for 90 days. Agency and brokerage. The following agent types are not offered by First Atlanta, dual agency and sub agency. And the seller does not consent to broker acting in a dual agency capacity because First Atlanta does not offer dual agency. Scrolling down, the seller has the following special circumstances. Please check any that apply and fill in any additional information. For today, pretty simple, no special circumstances, thankfully. Section 8, the seller does authorize the broker to assist to the extent requested by seller in negotiating the terms and filling out pre-printed forms. So you can see it's pretty simple. If you're familiar with Loop or any other e-signature platform, we're really just going through, checking boxes, typing things in the corresponding fields and scrolling down. So I'm going to continue to scroll down, and now we're going to get to the part of the form where it's just lots of text and lots of explanation. So we're going to keep scrolling, still scrolling. Now, I definitely recommend taking Alita's contract class every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. because that will help you be able to explain each parts of these documents. And then Lynn and Renee from Ganic PC are doing a Contracts 102 class next month. So check that out as well. And that's going to go through the exhibits and amendments. So section 10, any brochures that we're going to add. So I'm just going to select the ones that make sense. And all of these brochures are uploaded into DocuSign, so you can send them directly from DocuSign. And then we have our exhibits and addenda. So we have our legal description. So we're going to make that Amendment A. Scrolling down, any special stipulations that you want to type in here about this transaction, you can add them. Just click into the box and you can start typing your special, oh my goodness, I cannot type today, stipulation here. You can add more, even more, lots of stipulations. So type in whatever those stipulations are. I would imagine you probably have some that you want to use on every form or every time you have a listing agreement. If for whatever reason you have a ton of stipulations and you need to add more, you do have the additional stipulations page. So just be sure to check that box if you're going to use that. So I'm going to scroll down. And then here we have my client's name. So Tony and Pepper and their email addresses. All this information is pre-filled in from the details tab. Any of the fields that are pre-filled in from the details tab, if you make any edits to that information on a document or you delete any of that information on a document, it will make that same change in the details tab. So if you change or delete, let's say your client's email address off the form, it will delete it off the details tab. And then when we go to send this document for signature, there won't be an email address for Tony. So just be very mindful of that. And I'll point that out again in a little bit when we get to the purchase and sale agreement, because that's usually where I would be most inclined to want to delete my client's contact information. So I'm going to fill in the rest of the missing information here, KWFA 01 H33313, fax number, licensee phone number, real estate license number, and membership ARN. So we are good to go. Now you'll notice there aren't any actual signature fields or any signature buttons here. And that's because in the Documents tab, all we're doing is filling in the information for the forms. When we want to send these for signature, we will create an envelope to send those out. And we're going to get to that step in just a moment. But I wanted to point that out because in .loop, you would already see a little place right here where it says sign. We don't have that in DocuSign. So I'm going to scroll to the bottom of the page or the top right-hand corner and click Save and Close. It's a big yellow button. It's going to save all the information I just filled in, and it's going to close the document. Perfect. Any questions about filling in the seller's listing agreement? it's pretty simple. Again, it's just checking boxes and filling in the fields. The next document we're going to go through is the seller's property disclosure. So same thing, I'm just going to click on it to open it up. Give it a second to load. Sometimes DocuSign is faster than others. We try our best to be patient. So again, we're going to start at the top of the page and we're going to work our way down. So we don't have an exhibit. This is not an exhibit yet to a contract, so I'm going to leave this blank. I also don't have an offer date yet for a contract, so I'm going to leave this blank, but I do see that it auto-populated my listing address from the details tab. Then I'm going to scroll down and I'll see here is where the seller starts to fill in seller information on the disclosure, but there are no fields or no radio buttons for me to select anywhere on this document. That is correct. All of the fields on any of the disclosures, so the seller's property disclosure, community association disclosure, or lead-based paint disclosure, all of those fields are mapped to seller one to fill in. Me as a listing agent does not have access to fill in any of those fields. I do not want to be responsible or held liable for any information I put in there that could be incorrect. So DocuSign doesn't even allow us to fill anything in. So when you see this form and you may think, oh, it's broken, it is not broken, it works correctly. And I will show you in the envelope how all of these fields that look like they're missing here are in fact mapped to seller one. So I'm just going to scroll through the document, make sure I'm not missing anything, double check, because you never know, there may be some random field on here that I may have to fill in. But doesn't look like it. And here's my client's names for signature. I'm good to go. And I'm going to click save and close. All right, I'm going to do the same thing for the community association disclosure. So I'm going to open that up. And again, I don't have it. This isn't an exhibit yet to a contract, and I don't have an offer date. So I'm going to leave those fields blank, but it does have my listing information, the property address. I'm going to scroll down, and just like the seller's property disclosure, the community association disclosure does not have any check boxes for me to check or any fields for me to fill in, because all of the information on this form will be filled in by seller one. But I do just want to give it a double check to make sure that there aren't any fields on here that I'm missing, just in case. So scrolling down, everything looks good to go so far. So I'm going to click save and close. Any questions on the listing agreement, seller's property disclosure, or community association disclosure before we jump into the purchase and sale agreement? All right. So I want to walk through the purchase and sale agreement, and I do understand that traditionally the listing agent likely would not be the one to initiate a purchase and sale agreement, but I do want to make sure that we walk through it so you can get more comfortable and familiar with it, since it is going to be probably one of the single most important documents that you will use in your real estate career. So I'm going to open up the purchase and sale agreement. I'm just going to click on it to open it up. All right. And just like all the other forms, we'll start at the top and we're going to work our way down and fill in all of the fields of information that we have. So for this, for offer date, I'm going to put in today's date as an offer. So, and I'm putting that in that numerical format. So 4-30-2021. It fills in our property address. I'm going to add in my tax ID number from the tax records. Legal description, I'm going to use attached as an exhibit here too, because I do have a copy of the limited warranty deed. Purchase price of the paid by buyer. So it's listed at $415, but I'm going to be competitive and I'm going to put, we're going to $410. And again, I'm not going to put any commas there because for whatever reason, DocuSign isn't going to save them. Closing costs, I'm going to ask for $5,000, but in this field, commas are accepted. I don't know. So I'm going to put a comma there. Closing date, I'm going to make this closing date be June 1st, 2021. And I'm going to have possession at closing. Holder of earnest money, I'm going to KWFA. And then my earnest money is going to be provided by check. And it is going to be, we'll do $4,000 within 3 days of binding. Scrolling down, due diligence, I am asking for 10 days of due diligence. Put in however many days that you want down there. Lead-based paint, I'm going to select was not built prior to 1978 because the property is going to be is built in 2009. Scrolling down to section 10. So technically for today, I am the listing agent. So it's going to say the seller's brokers, Keller Williams, First Atlanta. And remember earlier when I mentioned removing realty from the name, because you can see how Keller Williams, First Atlanta fits perfectly in that box. If you had realty in there, the text would kind of go out off to the side and would get messy. So I'm representing my client, my seller as a client. The buyer's brokerage will just make Harry Norman. And this agent is representing their client, their buyer as a client. And there are no known material relationships. And I'm going to give this offer a time limit of 12 p.m. on 5/1/2021. All right. So I'm going to continue to scroll down. Lots of text explanation of the document. Now we have our exhibits and addenda. So I'm going to go through here and I'm going to check all the exhibits that I want to attach to this document. So for whatever reason, I don't know why the all cash sale exhibit is checked, but I'm going to uncheck that. And then I'm going to select the seller's property disclosure because I've added that. So I'm going to make that, for me, I like to make my seller's property disclosure always exhibit A. And then for me personally, I like to make my community association B. And then I like to have my loan exhibit BC. So today I'm going to use conventional loan exhibit. And then I'll make the legal description. I make that D. And this is just the order that I've always put mine in since I started in real estate. It's very simple. So that way I don't have to double check for various contracts. I already know every single time I have an exhibit A, it's going to be the seller's property disclosure. If you have any other exhibits you want to attach here, you can include those as well. Another common one that you may use is the sale or lease of buyer's property contingency exhibit. So if you're going to make your offer contingent on the sale of a current property, you can add that here as well. Now, I do want to point out that just because you check the boxes on this purchase and sale agreement does not mean that DocuSign is going to add these forms to your room. You still will have to manually go through and add that conventional loan exhibit or any other exhibit to the room and fill it in. This is just letting the other agent know and the closing attorney know to look for these exhibits since they are being referenced as a part of this contract. Scrolling down, we have our special stipulations box. And for whatever reason, whenever the GAR team was updating this, they made this box very small. I don't know why they made the special steps box so small, but they did, and there's nothing we can do about it at the moment. So you can just type in your special stipulations here, just like we did on the listing agreement. So you can type in steps, add some more, even more, lots more. Now, you can probably realistically maybe fit 2, maybe 3 stipulations here, which is probably gonna be fine for most agents. However, if you have a lot of special stipulations that you want to include for this purchase, I would recommend that you add the additional special stipulations page and check that box there. And again, you would need to manually add this from the forms library into your room. There is a way in the envelope, and I'll show you in a few moments, that we can add some more text here and make the text teeny tiny so we can fit more there. That is an option, but it's not going to win you any favors with a listing with a co-op agent or a closing attorney. but I do just want to point out that there is that functionality available. So I'm going to continue to scroll down. All right, and now we get to the signature fields. And I will say this, for me personally, I do not like to share my client's contact information with any co-op agent. I'm sure that 9 times out of 10, any co-op agent is going to be very respectful of my relationship that I have established with my clients. However, I also don't want my clients or myself to ever be put in a situation where that could be tested. So I would prefer not to include my client's email address on the purchase and sale agreement. However, like what I said earlier, anytime that there's a field on the form that is pre-populated with information from the details tab, if you edit or delete that information on a form, it edits or deletes on the details page. So if I were to delete this email address off the purchase and sale agreement, it would delete off the details tab. And then when I go to send this for signature, there wouldn't be an email address associated with toning. So it's counterintuitive, but leave your client's email addresses on the purchase and sale agreement. And I will show you in the envelope how we can hide and protect their privacy. So I'm going to scroll down, double check the information, make sure it's all good to go, fill in any missing fields. And if you wanted to, you can fill in the co-broker, the co-op agent's information. Now, I would recommend anything that you can do to help your client's offer stand out. It's going to be beneficial. And for some agents, even something as small as not having to go through and add in all the information on these forms could help your offer stand out. That being said, I do want to reiterate, I do not recommend sending documents for signature to co-op agents in DocuSign. But I do recommend that you fill out their information so you are a good co-op agent. So I'm going to click Save and Close. And we have completed filling in our purchase and sale agreement. So we have written our offer. Any questions about the purchase and sale agreement or any of the other documents that we've gone through this morning? All right. Well, now that we've filled in our documents, now we need to send them for signature. The way that we send documents for signature in DocuSign is through an envelope. And the way that Michael New explained envelopes to me was really great, so I like to share that. He explained it as, think of envelopes in DocuSign like a manila envelope in real life. Imagine if you had printed out all of the forms for your listing agreement, your seller's property disclosure, community association disclosure, and you have all these forms and you've used a paperclip and you've organized them all and you've gotten everything filled in, and all you need to do is hand them to your client. So I'm going to put them in a manila envelope and put it on the corner of my desk until I see my clients. And then when I see my clients, I'm going to take that manila envelope and I'm going to hand the entire thing to them. And I'm going to say, please review and sign all of these documents. Envelopes in DocuSign are the same thing as that manila envelope in real life. It really is just a vehicle to send the documents for signature. There are 2 ways that you can send an envelope in DocuSign. Or, excuse me, let me rephrase that. There are 2 ways that you can start an envelope in DocuSign. And I'm going to point them both out to you because you'll use both of them throughout a transaction. The first way is while you're here in the Documents tab, you can roll your mouse over the documents that you want to select and that you would want to send for signature. And anytime you select a document, this toolbar will appear at the top of the gray area, and you can roll your mouse over all the icons of that toolbar until you get to the Create Envelope icon. You can click Create Envelope, and this will create an envelope with these 3 documents in it, or whatever selected documents you have. The benefit of creating an envelope this way is going to be, as you get further along in a transaction, your room is going to be full of documents. Some old versions, some new versions, some documents from the co-op agent, maybe something from the closing attorney. And there's going to be a long list of documents. So it may be easier for you to actually select your specific document that you want to send for signature in the Documents tab versus going into an envelope and creating it from a list, which I'll show you in just a moment. So that is option number 1, by selecting documents and click Create Envelope. The second way to create an envelope is by going into the envelopes tab at the top. And then in the top right-hand corner, select new. And then with everything this morning, we're going to start at the top and we're going to work our way down, filling in the information. So we're going to give this envelope name. And this envelope name is just for us. Our clients aren't going to see it. However, I do recommend that you give this a name that you'll be able to remember and that you can easily reference in the future. Because throughout a transaction, you're going to send 10, 20, 30, 40, potentially 100 different envelopes. You're going to send a lot of them, so you may have to go back one day and reference something. So I'm going to give this a name of 1234 Main Street, and I'm going to do this exclusive title listing agreement and purchase and sale agreement. So I know what those are, so I can always come back and reference them. Scrolling down, now we need to add documents to the envelope. To do this, I'm going to click on the Room Docs button right here, this blue button. And this is going to show me a list of all the documents that I have in my room. Now, remember, all the documents. So this is when I was saying just a moment ago that as you get further along in that transaction, this list is going to be pretty cumbersome. So it may be kind of difficult to actually select the correct one. So that would be when you may want to create your envelope from within the Documents tab. But this morning, it's going to be super easy because I only have 4 documents and I want to send all 4 for review and signature. So I'm going to select all of them and then I'm going to click Add Selected. And it's going to add these documents to the envelope. So give this a second to load. And it's just going to put them in alphabetical order. Now, earlier I had mentioned that we do not add the affiliated marketing or wire fraud prevention disclosure in the Documents tab. Those are templates that the MCA office has set up for us. And the reason they're templates is because there aren't any fields for you as the agent or your clients to fill in. All they have to do is sign. So here in the envelope is where we're going to add that template. So to add your disclosures, click on Use a Template. And then I'm going to select the Shared with Me folder. And this is going to show a list of all the documents that the MCA office have shared with you as a template. We'll just give it a second to load. Sometimes DocuSign likes to take its sweet time, and we try our best to be patient, even though we are in a multiple offer situation and I have to get this offer out as soon as possible. Come on, DocuSign. I'm going to try my best to be patient. All right. So now we have all of our templates loaded. So I'm going to scroll down the list. And then here you'll see we have our buyer-affiliated marketing and buyer-wire fraud disclosures. I'm going to continue to scroll down, and then you'll see I have a seller version of the affiliated and wire fraud disclosures. They are the exact same forms. However, because of the way that roles are set up in DocuSign, you either have a buyer or a seller. So there are 2 different versions of these forms. So make sure that you select the correct version of these templates based on which side of the transaction you are working, because that signature field is going to be mapped accordingly. So I'm going to select those 2 templates and then I'm going to click Add Selected, and it will add them to my envelope. All right. So now we have all 6 documents in my envelope. However, I want to put them in a specific order for my client. So I want them to see the listing agreement first, then the disclosures, and then get to the purchase and sale agreement. In order to put them in that specific order, you have to do that right here at this stage of the envelope. If you do it, you cannot change it later on. So in order to rearrange the documents, roll your mouse over the form that you want to move. So I have my exclusive seller listing agreement. Click on it, hold your mouse down, and drag it into the position that you want. So we have my listing agreement. Then I want my seller's property disclosure to be second. Then I want the affiliated marketing to be after the community association disclosure. And then I want wire fraud to go after affiliated marketing. And then I want my purchase and sale agreement to be last. So that's how you reorganize them, and make sure you do it here, because once you've gone past this step, you won't be able to reorder them. At the end of the day, not the biggest deal, but just I know that some people like to have things in a very specific order. I'm one of those people. So we have all of our documents added to the envelope. I'm going to scroll down, and now we're going to add recipients to the envelope. And this is going to be who we're going to send these documents to review and sign. So to add my recipients, I'm going to click on the Add Recipient drop-down menu, and I have 3 options: pre-tagged roles, room participants, email addresses. If you ever see pre-tagged roles, which will be very often, as an option to add recipients, always add pre-tagged roles. It is very important that you select pre-tagged roles, because every single form in DocuSign has specific roles that are mapped to each field, each signature field, each initial field. So if I select, as long as I select pre-tagged roles, the seller signature fields and everything will be automatically mapped for them, and I will not have to manually add those signature fields. If you select select room participants, or you upload a document and you have to add a signature, you're going to have to manually go through and add every single initial signature field, little field for them to fill in. It's going to take a lot of time. So please always select pre-tagged roles. Email address is if you just want to add someone to sign here that isn't actually part of the room. They're not in one of the roles on the details page, and you haven't invited them here into the room. So always select pre-tagged roles. I'm gonna say it one more time because it is that important. Always select pre-tagged roles. So I'm gonna click pre-tagged roles, and I'm gonna get this pop-up window that's gonna show me a list of every single role that's on all the forms that I have included in my envelope. However, I only need to select a few of them. So I'm gonna select Seller 1, and I'm gonna select Tony Stark. I've set Tony up as Seller 1 on the Details tab, and I have talked with my clients and between Tony and Pepper, and I said, which one of you would like to be the one responsible for filling in all of the information on the seller's property disclosure and the community association disclosure? And they both agreed that Tony would be that person. So I'm going to select Tony as Seller 1 because that is going to be who is responsible for filling in those disclosures. Seller 2, I'm going to select as Pepper Potts. And then Listing Agent, I'm going to select myself. Now, your name may be in here more than once. That's a-okay. Pick either one. It doesn't matter. Now, if I scroll down to the bottom, you'll see I have this Seller 1 with a number and Seller 2. Don't select those. It's just a small mapping issue with one of the office disclosures. So just select the ones where it says Seller 1 and 1 or 2 is spelled out. Since it does give us the option to send to a buyer's agent or to a co-op, the co-op agent, or another, like the other side of the transaction clients, you may feel inclined to add them here. Do not. This is what I was mentioning earlier when I said we do not want to send documents for signature to co-op agents through DocuSign. So I'm never going to add my buyer's agent here as a pre-tagged role because I don't want my document to go to that co-op agent for signature directly through DocuSign. So now that I have my 3 recipients selected, my Seller 1, Seller 2, and myself as listing agent, I'm going to click Add Selected. So we'll give it a second, and it's going to add all 3 of those recipients to the room or to the envelope. All right, so there's a fair amount of information here that we need to walk through first before we move on. To the left of each one of these recipients is a box with the number 1 in it. These boxes represent the signing order that each participant will be responsible for signing. The system will always default to 1, which means that every single person that's included in this envelope will be able to sign the document at the same exact time, which sometimes is fine. However, for me, I want to assign a specific order because I want Tony to go in and I want him to fill in all of the fields on the seller's property disclosure first. And then I want Pepper to have the ability to review that information and make sure it's correct. And then she can sign it. Then once they have both signed, I will review and sign, and I have the ability to make my listed agreement binding. So it makes things really simple. So if you want to update the order, just click your mouse into the box and update the number, and the system is going to reorder it. And I'm going to select myself, and I'm going to make number 3. So now we have a very specific order of Tony, Pepper, then myself. It's going to have their names here and email addresses based on what we filled in on the details page. To the right of that, we have this drop-down menu with says needs to sign. It's going to default to needs to sign, but we have the ability to update to needs to view, receives a copy, or specify recipient. Needs to view is if they just need to review it. They don't actually need to sign anything. They don't actually have anything to do on that document. Receives a copy. This might be of benefit if you have a great working relationship with either a closing attorney or a lender, and as soon as something goes binding, you want DocuSign to automatically send it to them. You can set them up just to receive a signed copy. And specify recipient, it's fine. You don't need to do anything with that. Then we also have this drop-down menu where it says more, and it gives us 2 options. The first is add access authentication. If you are working with clients that are not very comfortable with e-signature platforms, they may want an extra level of security to prevent fraud. You can add an access authentication code by clicking this, and then you can type in whatever code, whatever format, letters, numbers that you want in here. So now I can say to Tony, hey, before you're allowed to actually sign the documents, it's going to ask for a special code. That code is 12345. Then Tony's going to have to type in 12345 before he is allowed to start signing. So he doesn't have to stress that someone's going to break into his email and start signing and buying houses on his behalf that he doesn't know about. But I don't actually want to use that today, so I'm going to click discard. And then our other option here is to add a private message. So since Tony is going to be seller 1 and he's the one responsible for filling in the disclosures, I want to add a private message that's going to go only to Tony to remind him to fill in those disclosures. And it's going to say, hi, Tony, please be sure to fill in the SPD and CAD. Thank you, Nick. Very simple. And only Tony is going to see this private message. So now I've added my recipients. I've selected pre-tagged roles. I selected the order in which I want each one of these recipients to receive and sign the documents. I've set the correct permission, and I've added that private message for Tony. I'm going to scroll down, and now I'm going to write a little message to my recipients. The default email subject is going to be please DocuSign. I would recommend you leave please DocuSign in there, but then update it with more information about what they're specifically signing. So I'm going to do 1234 Main Street, exclusive seller listing agreement, and purchase and sale. At this point, I imagine you probably would have already talked with your clients and say, hey, I'm getting ready to send over these documents for your review and sign them. Please be on the lookout for an email from me from DocuSign. So this just gives them a little bit more assurance that these are the correct documents for them to review and sign. And then I'm going to type a message, hi, Tony and Pepper, please review and sign. Thank you, Nick. Simple message. Any questions so far on setting up our envelope, giving it a name, adding documents, recipients, and writing a message before we go to the next page? All right. So once we have set up our envelope and we've added all of our documents and recipients, up in the top right-hand corner, I'm going to click Next. And this is going to take me to the envelope editor, where I can go through and I can double check, make sure that all the information I put on the documents is correct, and double check all the signature fields and initial fields. If there are any that are missing, I can add them or I can adjust them accordingly. There is a lot of information on this page, so let's quickly talk through the layout before we actually start editing anything. So up here in the top left-hand corner, you'll see Tony's name with a little yellow circle to the left of it, and it's a drop-down menu. You'll also notice that below here, we have all these standard fields for signature, initial, date, sign, name, the list here. And all these little boxes, icons are colored yellow that correspond with Tony. Well, if I select the drop-down menu and I see Pepper, she has a blue circle. So if I select Pepper, all of the color of the icons for the standard fields change to blue, so I can more easily visually identify which fields on these documents are coded and mapped to each recipient. So I know anything on here that's yellow is Tony's, anything blue is Pepper's, and anything purple is mine. The colors don't mean anything other than just to quickly connect a name and a signature field. So if you're going through a transaction and through multiple envelopes, Tony's purple one time and then blue another time, it's fine. It's just going to be specific for this envelope so I can quickly ID which fields are responsible, which fields are mapped to which recipient. If I ever need to add any fields, I have a bunch of different fields on here. My signature, initial, date, sign, name, email, tons of fields I can add. Very simple. On the top here, I have the ability to zoom in if I want to. I can also undo or redo any of the changes that I make. Over on the right-hand side, we have this column, and this is going to show thumbnails of each one of the documents that are in this envelope. And this is going to be really helpful. And you'll notice that they're in the correct order that we put them in the envelope. So I can click through the seller listing agreement and I can scroll through the thumbnails. And then anywhere that there's a signature or initial or any field mapped to a specific participant, it's going to have a little tab on that top left-hand corner. And that lets me know that there's something on this page for signature or review. So I can quickly jump here and I can see here are my signature and date sign fields for both Tony and Pepper. And I can scroll down and here are the ones for me. And that's how I can quickly jump to where those signature fields are. Now, I mentioned to you earlier that I can make this document binding when I sign it. So I'm going to be the third and final signer. Excuse me. So what I can do is I can come up here to the menu, in the drop-down menu, select myself, and then I can come over here and I can add a text box. So I'm just going to click text box and then drag my mouse over to where I want to put that and then drop that into that field. I'm going to format it to fit in that field right there. And you'll notice that when I click on one of these text boxes or any one of the standard fields, this menu will appear on the right-hand side. This text box will default to required field. And what that means is that this is going to be required for me to fill in when I sign it. The system will not let me complete my signature unless I fill in some information here. So by adding these text fields here, I can, when I sign it, add in the correct information to make this document binding. Another great feature that I love about DocuSign is that I can right mouse click on any one of these fields that I've added, click copy, paste, and I can just easily add another field right there. So I don't have to go all the way to the left, reformat it, all that jazz. And then the last thing I need to do is add a date here, and I can just simply add the date signed field. So that way when I sign it, it's just going to automatically add the date there. So I'll be good to go. Any questions on adding that binding information on the bottom of the listing agreement? All right. So let's continue to scroll through the documents and double check everything. So we have our listing agreement. We're good to go. Now I'm going to scroll down to the seller's property disclosure. Now remember, when we were in the documents tab, all of these fields and radio buttons were gone. There wasn't anything there. Now they're here, but they're all outlined in yellow. So I know from my drop-down menu in the top left-hand corner that Tony is yellow. But if I click on this text field on the left-hand side, it's only outlined in yellow, and the menu on the right-hand side doesn't have required field checked. And what that means is that Tony doesn't necessarily have to fill in any of the information that is outlined in yellow for the system to complete his signature. So what will happen is that DocuSign is going to jump from signature field to signature field to signature field and jump right over all these fields on this disclosure. Well, I don't want that to happen because it's going to be more tricky for Tony to scroll up and fill in the information. So a fun trick is that right here on this question 1A, what year was the main residential dwelling constructed? If you select this text field and then come over here and check required field, now that text field is filled in yellow and the system is going to stop Tony at this field and he's going to have to fill in the information here. That's going to make it much easier for him as he's going through this disclosure to scroll down and fill in any of the remaining fields.
Nick, could you go over that one more time, please?
Yes.
Sorry, I was writing and didn't see what you did.
So this text field here, let me just undo it real fast. So the text field here for what years the main residential dwelling constructed is going to be outlined in yellow, which means that it's not a required field. And the way that you can tell that is by clicking on the text field and this menu on the right-hand side, required field isn't checked, which means that DocuSign system is when Tony's signing, it's just going to jump from required field to required field and jump right over all of these fields to fill in. Well, I want Tony to stop and fill in this information. So a fun trick that you can do is if you click on this text field and then click required over here in that menu on the right-hand side, now this text field will be filled in yellow, and that's going to require Tony to fill in a date or a year in this field. And then from there, it's going to be much easier for him to scroll down and fill in the remaining information and check boxes. Now, I only want to check or only want to select. Sorry, was there another question?
No, I just said thank you.
You're welcome. Now, I do want to point out, I only want to make this first question 1A required because I don't necessarily know what the answers are going to be for all the rest of these fields, which ones will be yes, which ones will be no. So I don't want to go through and make them all required. Just this first one should be more than enough to stop the system for Tony. So I'm going to scroll down, just double check and make sure that all these fields are all outlined in yellow so they are mapped to Tony. Now, this is what I was telling you is very important when you select those pre-tagged roles because all of these fields are automatically mapped to Tony as seller 1. If you selected room participants, none of these fields will be mapped to anybody. And you would have to manually add radio buttons and text fields for every single item. That will take you a long time and not the best use of your time. So please be sure to check pre-tagged roles so everything is already done for you. Come down here, signature field, date signed, good to go. I'm going to continue down to the community association disclosure. And this is going to be the same thing as the seller's property disclosure. However, I don't know which type of association is for this community. So I'm not going to make any of these text fields up here required. But what I am going to do is I'm going to come to where it says name of association. I'm going to click on this text field and I'm going to make this required because I do know that there is an HOA for this community. So I know that there's going to be a name for this association. And again, this will make it much easier for Tony when he's filling in to stop here, fill in the name of the association, and then check any of the boxes up here that go with it, and then fill in any of the remainder information on the next 2 pages. So I'm going to scroll through, double check everything. There's the initials. Then we get to our affiliated disclosure. Now we're missing client signature fields here, which is fine, not a big deal. I'm just going to manually add them. So I'm going to select Tony, click on signature, add that signature field here, add date signed. I'm just going to add that right there. Then I'm going to select Pepper from the drop-down menu, select signature, add it over here, and then date signed. And it's that simple. Now I'm going to scroll down to get to the wire fraud prevention, and everything is good to go. We have our signature fields and name, date signed. Now I'm going to scroll down. Now we're going to get to our purchase and sale agreement. So again, I'm just going to go through. I'm going to double check any of the information here. And if for whatever reason I forgot to do something, I can quickly make an edit here. And I already see one off the top of the page right here for earnest money. I forgot to check the box here for B. So I'm going to come over here to myself from the drop-down menu, and then I'm going to click on checkbox. I'm going to add a checkbox right there. And then I'm going to double click on that field to check it. So now when everyone signs, it will show that 7B is selected for earnest money. So that's another way you want to go through here and just double check everything. Scrolling down, everything else looks good. We have our client initials there. Keep scrolling. Keep scrolling. Still scrolling. All right. So now we get to our exhibits and addenda. So we'll just double check and make sure that all the correct ones are checked and that they each have a corresponding letter. Special stipulations. So here's where it's telling you there is a little bit of a workaround for text. So if you want to add in some more special steps, we can add a text box here. So I can add that text box. I can format it to the space. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to uncheck required field and I'm going to select read only. And it's very important that you select read only because you want to make sure that these special stipulations appear on the page when everyone signs. So now I'm going to click on in the text field and I can start typing step, more steps, more. Now you'll notice I have a scrolling bar within my text field and PDFs, you can't scroll through them. So what you can do is you can select all the text there. Then over in the menu on the right-hand side, you can come to formatting. And then you can select the font size and change that to 7. So now I have very small font and all of those stipulations fit. Now this is where I was telling you, you're not going to win any favors with your co-op agent or a closing attorney because they're going to have a teeny tiny little font, but they do fit. So that is an option. I just want to point that out. Scrolling down, we'll double check our signature fields. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't like to share my clients' contact information with co-op agents. So the easiest way to hide that is over here on the left-hand side, there's a pencil icon that says pre-filled tools. I'm going to click on this pencil icon, and then I'm going to select line. And then I'm just going to drag a line and cover up my client's email address. And then once I select that, it gives me the ability to make some changes over here in the menu. I'm going to select color. I'm going to change it to black. And then thickness, I'm going to change that all the way to 10. And I'm just going to drag that. And now it covers my client's email address perfectly. Yes, a black box is not very aesthetically pleasing, but I'd rather protect my client's privacy and avoid any conflicts and then have a black box on here. So I'm just going to right mouse click on that black box, click copy, right mouse click paste, and I'm going to drag that over my other agent or other contact's name, and then we are good to go. Scroll down, just double check myself, and we are good to go. Now we have the ability to do a quick recipient preview. So I'm going to click on recipient preview, and this will show us exactly what it's going to be like for your clients when they go to sign. So I'm going to select Tony's name from the dropdown, and DocuSign is able to be signed on a computer, on a tablet, or a phone. So you can kind of see, get a visual idea of what it's going to be like for your clients on a phone. Now, more than likely, they're not going to sign on a phone, but let's say you're in a multiple offer situation and they're like, oh, we have reservations at this restaurant and we've been wanting to go to for so long. You can say, go to dinner. I have all the terms. We've talked through what we're going to put in that offer. I'm going to put that in a purchase and sale agreement, and I'm going to send it to you, and I'll send you a text message. While you're at your table, just pull your phone out and you can sign on your phone. It's that simple. Now, it's going to be really hard to read, but they can sign. So up here in the top right-hand corner, there's a little X, and that's how I'm going to exit out of the recipient preview. And once we are good to go, I'm going to click send. And this is going to send these documents out for signature. There we go. It's waiting on others. So I'm going to pull up my email really quickly. Let me come over here. Let me pull up my KWFA Tech email. And here we have our please DocuSign 1234 Main Street from this morning that just sent at 11:25. So I'm going to go through the process of signing as if I'm Tony. I'm going to scroll down. Here's my private message to Tony that says, please be sure to fill in the SPD and CAD. And then here's my message to both Tony and Pepper. So I'm going to click Review Documents. Now I'm signing as Tony. I'm going to go as quickly as possible because I do realize we are almost at the end of time and I want to be respectful, but I also want to show you all this stuff. So I'm going to click to agree to use electronic records and signatures, continue. I'm going to start, and it's going to jump me straight to that first signature field. I'm going to click sign. It's going to ask me to confirm my signature, adopt and sign, and then it's going to jump me to that next required field. And now this is the seller's property disclosure where I made this one field about the year it was constructed required. So I'm going to put 2009. And now it's a lot easier for me as Tony to go through here and I can check all these boxes. And I'm not going to go through and fill all of them, but I do want to put some of them in here. So I want you to see what it's like when Pepper goes to sign. So fill in info. Let's do a few more here. All right. I'm going to click next. It's going to go to the signature field on the seller's property disclosure, sign it. And then it's going to take me here to the name of the association. So I can type in name of HOA here. And then it's more easy for me as Tony to come up here and say, oh, okay, we have a mandatory membership. I can check this box here and it is $1,000 and it is paid in 4 installments. And then I can go through and fill in the rest of the information. Pretty simple. And I can click next. Actually, let me scroll through and select some of these things. Next, sign, initial. And I'm going to scroll up really quickly because I want to show you, see how small that font is? It's teeny tiny. So for those special steps. So just be mindful of that. Then I can come back here. You can see that black bar covering my client's email address. I'm going to click sign. Now, as Tony, I'm going to click finish. So please instruct your clients to click on the finish button. And then they need to get this screen. Well, it's going to ask them if they want to create an account. We're going to select no thanks. And then they need to receive the you're all done page. Once they have received the you're all done page, they're good to go. And the system will now send this document on to the next signer. And that next signer is actually Pepper. So I'm going to open up my personal email very quickly. And we'll have an email here at the top for please DocuSign. Scroll here. I have my message to both Tony and Pepper. I don't have the private message here. That's A-okay. I'm going to click Review Documents. We'll go through the same process where we're going to confirm. I agree to use electronic records and signatures. Continue. I'm going to click Start. It's going to sign, adopt and sign. And it's going to jump me all the way to the bottom of the seller's property disclosure. But I want to scroll up here so you can see that all of the information that Tony filled in on this disclosure is actually on this document. So Pepper has the ability to review and she can double check and say, all right, all this is good to go before she signs. So I'm going to click next. Well, this is the community association disclosure and it's the same thing. We can see here that all the information is filled in correctly. So sign, initial, sign. It's jumping me back up to those other disclosures that I skipped. Now I'm going to click finish. No, thank you. Now Pepper got the URL done page, which is perfect. And now I'm going to come into my email, my work email, and it's going to give me the options to sign. So I can click Review Documents. And I'll click Continue, Start, sign, and then it jumps me into this binding required text field. So it stops here. So I'm just going to make this 12 p.m. Oop. Fill in, sign, and now I'm finished. It's going to ask me if I want to sign in. I'm going to say no, thank you, because I'm already signed in on a different tab. And now I got the "you're all done." So that means everybody has signed this envelope. And one of the great things about DocuSign is that once everybody signs the documents, almost immediately, DocuSign will send out a copy of those signed documents to all the recipients. Here we have completed, please DocuSign, our envelope, and it has each document attached as a PDF that they just reviewed and signed. It is our responsibility that every time our client signs something that they have a copy of that for their records. So this kind of takes a little bit of that responsibility off our, takes a little bit of work off of our plates because it automatically sends them the documents. Now, I would still recommend that you manage your client relationship and organize everything for them, but that's just one thing to know. So you have that completed DocuSign. So now I'm going to go back into DocuSign. I'm going to refresh this envelopes page because I want you to see where it says completed. And if you ever need to reference this envelope, you come here to completed, and it's going to show you the date and time that everyone signed. So I'm going to click the X. Then I'm going to go back into my Documents tab. And as I mentioned earlier, anytime we have a new document or a signed document, it's going to default into the Room Docs folder. So I can scroll down here, and now I see I have all these new documents in my Room Docs folder with this green check mark that says signed. So again, I want to move my listing agreement documents into the listed agreement folder. So I'm going to select all those, and I'm going to select move. I'm going to select folder in current room, and then listing agreement, and click move. Refreshes, and now it puts all those documents in the correct folders. And I can scroll down here. I also have this certification. This, again, every time you send an envelope, you will receive one of these in your DocuSign room, which is fine. It just goes through and again shows you the time that everyone was sent, viewed, and signed the forms. So if there's ever any questions, that's here. Any questions so far about signing the documents? I know we're over. I have like just under 10 minutes of information I want to share you before we are done, if you can bear with me. All right. So one thing I want to point out to you, and Deborah had asked this question, if we're able to combine documents, because I know some of us prefer that when we send offers, we want to include every single document as one PDF. You do have the ability to do that in DocuSign. And the way that you're going to do that is by rolling your mouse over the documents that you want to combine and selecting each one of them. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to select all my signed listing agreement forms because I want to put this in a nice single document to send over to my clients. And then whenever you select these documents, a toolbar will appear. We're going to roll our mouse over to the icon that says combine. And we're going to be able to give this a new document name. So I'm going to name this 1234 Main Street Binding Listing Agreement. And it's going to have a list of all the documents below. And then I can move those documents into specific order by just dragging them into whichever order I want. And then once you have them in the order, you have a name, click save. The page will refresh. I'm going to come back down to my Room Docs folder because that's where all my documents will default into. And then here's my new combined document. So I'm just going to click on it and drag it into my listing agreement folder. And now I can open this up. And here's all 22 pages of all those documents that I just combined. Similarly, let's say you are on the receiving side of a document that has a bunch of different forms combined into a single PDF. You can upload that into DocuSign, and then you can open it up. And then up here, there's this icon that's with the little corner dog ear that says Document Actions. If you click on that, you can come down here to the option that says Split. And very similarly, as we just combined, you can actually take a single document and break it up into multiple documents. And this will be required when we submit documents for compliance review, because Lynn and Alita want to see each individual GAR form by itself. So I can name this first one. I'll just exclusive settle listing agreement. And then I can come over here and I can just click all the pages that I want to be included in this document. And you can tell when you move your mouse over it, it zooms in, so you can just double check to make sure you're on the right page. So this selects page 1 through 10. Now I want to do another document, so I can name this SPD. I can come over here and I can select pages 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So every time you want to split a document, just click add a document, and then up in the top right-hand corner, click save. And it's going to save those new separate individual documents down here in the Room Docs folder as my ESLA and my SPD. Any questions about combining or separating documents? All right. Now that we have all of our documents ready to go, now we need to actually send them to Lynn and Alita for compliance review. And compliance review is done solely in Command. So I'm going to go back into Command.
I'm sorry, Nick, one question.
Yeah.
Before you do that, if I'm sending it to the other agent for signature,
Yep.
what do I grab and how do I send that as a PDF?
Great question. Thank you. So because I recommend not sending things through DocuSign to co-op agents for signature, what I would recommend doing is selecting the documents that you want to send. So here I have my purchase and sale agreement. I'll take the signed one. I can select that and then come up here and click download. And that's going to download a PDF to my computer. And then I would recommend you take this PDF, attach it to an email that you send through Gmail, and say, here's the purchase and sale agreement for 1234 Main Street. Please review and sign in your earliest convenience, or whatever you want to say.
So the one that you just did where you combined everything,
Yep.
If that's what I needed to send to the other agent, can I do it with that?
Yeah. So I mean, here's the one that I have that's
Because
combined.
that has everything in order.
Yeah. So I could just come up here and then click download, and it's going to download this document. So you can send any document, any PDF document from DocuSign, you can download to then email out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You are welcome. So now I'm going to go back into Command, because now we need to upload these documents for compliance review. So to do that, I'm going to come into Command. Now we have our list of all these documents. And as I just mentioned, Lynn and Alita want to see each individual GAR form by itself. So since we had clicked start a transaction in the beginning of this morning, I can come over here and click add a file. And then it's going to ask for source of documents. And because I started that room from within Command, I can select DocuSign because the opportunity and the room are synced together. And it's going to show me a list of all the forms that I have in my room. Now I've gone through and I've organized that. So I have my listing agreement folder. So I can come down here to my listing agreement folder and then find my exclusive seller listing agreement -signed. It's going to show every single form that I have in that room. So make sure you select the correct one. So I'm going to select sign. I'm going to click assign. And now it's going to automatically upload that document from DocuSign into Command. Now I have a lot of documents that I need to upload and I don't want to go one by one. Well, I don't have to. I can come up here and I can select attach multiple files. Again, I would select DocuSign as my source. And then I want to scroll through all the documents that I have and add them. So the same way, I'm going to come to my community association disclosure. I'm going to scroll down to my listing agreement folder, community association disclosure signed. Select that. Do the same thing for the seller's property disclosure. Find my seller's property disclosure signed. We don't have lead-based paint. We have our Rawls Group affiliated marketing. So I'm going to scroll down. Affiliated marketing right there, signed. And then Rawls Group wire fraud prevention. So now I've been able to add all these, what is that, 4, and click attach. And now it's going to attach all 4 of those documents at once. And if you want to see a preview, you can click on the name of the document and it's going to show you a preview. I'm going to click X to get out of that. Now, if for whatever reason you have another document in here that you need to upload that is not included on this list, you can come up here and click Add Item. Give this document a name. So I'm just going to say full binding listing agreement. Select document type. Select one that's going to be the most similar. It's not going to affect compliance review or anything. Select agreement. And then source of documents, DocuSign. And then I'm going to add that total combined document that I created and click Save. And it's uploaded. That's how easy it is to upload documents into Command from DocuSign when the 2 systems are linked. Once you've uploaded all of your documents, this button up here, once you've uploaded a document, but I would wait until you've completed and uploaded all of them, this button up here that says Submit to MC will be illuminated. Click Submit to MC. This is what is going to let Lynn and Alita know that there are documents for them to review. When you are working on a listing, as soon as you get that listing agreement signed, they want to see the listing agreement and the disclosures immediately. When you're working with a buyer, once you go binding, you need to immediately upload those documents and submit for compliance review. That is all the information I'll be reviewing this morning. And I know it was a lot. What questions do you have? What can I clarify for you? Anything that I can show you again? All right. It's a lot of information. As you're working in DocuSign, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Call me, text me, email me. Especially if you have a quick question, just give me a call. It's usually easiest and we can just figure out whatever the problem is and troubleshoot it together. My goal is to never allow any bit of technology stand in the way of you and a binding contract. So please don't let that happen. Give me a call. Let's get it resolved as soon as possible. Have a great rest of your day. And I'm going to upload this video to Command or to YouTube in just a few moments. So you can always check it out if you want to reference it later.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate it very much.
You are very welcome. Have a great rest of your Friday.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.